Hi, business and professional writing students. Welcome to the Unit 4 lecture. So, for Unit 4, there is no new reading added to our assignment list. We are staying with chapters 6 and 7, and I discussed those in the lecture that was posted last week, so I'm not going to bore you with another summary of chapters 6 and 7 from the textbook. But our discussion question for Unit 4 is what writing strategies can you use to engage a reader in an email? How do these strategies work to your benefit? Why is it difficult to get and maintain your reader's attention? So instead, I thought it would be helpful to talk about this question. And the way I'm going to talk about it is by discussing an article that I read about a 23-year-old, well, she's now 23, but I believe she was 20 when, well, anyway, it's about this entrepreneur who, at the age of 20, sent a cold email to Mark Cuban, and he actually responded. So the article is about writing a successful cold email that even a celebrity or an entrepreneur or an influencer would respond to. But before we get to the techniques for a successful cold email, let's see, something that I also thought might be helpful to address, the question of why is it so difficult to get and maintain your reader's attention. So this is something that we probably don't have to think about too much. Most of us, and I'm not a celebrity or an influencer or a business leader, I get tons of emails that were unsolicited from companies and different, I get tons and tons of emails. So one reason why it's so difficult to get anyone's attention is because we are all inundated with emails, whether they're trying to sell us something or trying to endorse something politically and culturally. So we're all inundated with emails, and of course celebrities and influencers and business leaders even more so. But in my research for material to talk to you about in this lecture, I actually found, I read something that said that in theory, the best time to email someone is 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. Now, I don't know if this has been tried and tested, but according to the research I did in an article I found, it said that the best time to email someone and when you have the most likelihood of getting a response is if you send your email on a Tuesday at 2 o'clock. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that. And then moving on to the subject line, which is something that we have discussed already. But the subject line, as we've all noted, is one of the most important parts of an email. It is the one part that your audience, the recipient, is going to see. So it's really in your interest to make the subject line as informative and as specific as you can. So one video that I watched was arguing that newspaper headlines are actually really good and that our subject lines should be more like newspaper headlines. So I looked at the New York Times email that was sent to my Kane email yesterday and some of the headlines, and I do agree these were pretty compelling. But the first headline was "No proof Hamas routinely stole U.S. aid, Israel military officials say." So you can see how that's very specific, and also it's interesting, but also you know what you're going to find in that article. It's going to be about Hamas, okay, you get my point. The second New York Times headline, competing conspiracy theories conspire Trump's Washington, competing conspiracy theories consume Trump's Washington. So that one is about different conspiracy theories involving Trump and the Epstein files. And then the third New York Times headline is "A Kennedy toils in Mississippi, tracing his grandfather's path." So those are all great headlines, and they would also make great email subject lines because, again, they're very specific. So the best email subject line is one that is specific and informative. And now moving on to the tips from Maddie Bregman, and she's the subject of this article that I read. And the article is called "This 23-year-old entrepreneur emailed Mark Cuban, Sheryl Sandberg, and Adam Grant, and they responded." And the article proceeds to give us 3 tips from Maddie Bregman. She's now the founder of Girls, and it's spelled with a Z, and that is a youth marketing consulting firm. And she's worked with Gatorade, NFL, Nickelodeon, PepsiCo, Burger King, and Chipotle. And all of her success started in 2017 when she emailed Mark Cuban, and she sent him, an email, not thinking that he would respond. And guess what? He did. So here are her 3 tips. The first one is keep it short and don't sell. So Bregman urges us to remember that execs, celebs, and influencers are inundated even more so than we are with emails. And her exact advice is, quote, keep the sentences short and space them out. This makes it easier to read. So I think we all probably knew that short emails are more reader friendly, but I had never thought of spacing my sentences out, but I am going to try it. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about this. Maybe if you do, you could comment in the DQ. Bregman goes on to remind us that selling anything, whether you're actually trying to sell a product for money or pushing a political view, that any type of sales pitch in a cold email is a turnoff. And so Bregman says that she avoids trying to sell anything in her first email to someone, and she urges us to use first emails to spark attention and gain interest. And she urges us also to look at it this way, that if your first email gets someone's attention and interest, that email has been successful. So save the sales pitch for further on down the road. And then her second piece of advice is ask a very specific question, and don't ask to pick someone's brain or get a cup of coffee. And the reason she tells us not to ask to pick someone's brain or ask someone to get a cup of coffee, she says that execs, CEOs, influencers, and celebrities hear this all the time. They're often told, "Oh, I'd love to pick your brain," or "Oh, I'd love to get a cup of coffee with you," and they don't have time to do these things. Also, asking to pick someone's brain, that's kind of a vague proposition. Who really knows what that entails? But if you ask someone a very specific question, it makes it much easier for them to respond. So let's say I am going to do a TED Talk. I could ask Mark Cuban for public speaking advice, and this is actually the example Bregman gives. She says that she asked Mark Cuban for public speaking advice, and he said that he loves to be the youngest person in the room, and his advice was not to be intimidated when you are the youngest person in the room, but to use that to your advantage. And I thought that was great advice, because I started teaching in higher education when I was 26, which is really young. And I've always been kind of self-conscious about my age, because even today, 20 years later, I'm still a little young to be a professor. And well, not really, but anyway, but I guess it still stays with me. So I'm always a little self-conscious about my age, even though there's no reason to be. But so I really liked his comment. And then Bregman also includes a quote from Angela Duckworth, who is the best-selling author of Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance. So Duckworth tells us, as far as how to be successful at public speaking, she says, tell a story that has a beginning with suspense, a middle with vulnerability, and an ending with lessons learned. Okay, and moving on to the third tip from Bregman, she implores or begs us, don't underestimate your ability to make contact. So what does that mean? Well, don't underestimate yourself. Don't think, Mark Cuban or Oprah or will never respond to my email. You never know what you might be able to accomplish or what you might be able to do. And you'll never know if you don't try. But you do know that you will never accomplish anything if you don't try. So that's, So again, don't underestimate your ability to make contact, because you'll never know what you might have been able to do if only you had tried. So, okay. I hope that this was maybe interesting and that it gives you something to think about. And I will be posting another lecture tomorrow or the next day, or I shouldn't call it a lecture, another short video discussing some emailing techniques. So I hope this was helpful to you, and I look forward to reading your DQ responses. Bye, guys.